Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A
Good
session here
morning,
on my channel.
everyone.
Good
I'm just going to
afternoon,
skip
good
the
evening,
intro
good night,
because
wherever you
apparently
are.
I'm
Thank
having
you for
trouble getting
joining
through it.
me again
What we're going to
for
talk
another
about
live
today
Q&A
is
session
the
here on my
ACX
channel.
Standard.
And for those of you that were joining for Tim Tippett's joining me today, he had to reschedule. So he had some technical difficulties. It was a whole thing. It was one of those kind of weekends. But today we're going to be talking about ACX Standard. I do have had some questions on my YouTube videos about meeting ACX's standards, and I immediately revert because I have PTSD when it comes to trying to meet ACX's standard. So we're going to talk about what these standards are, and I'll go through I did an audition this morning, and I'm going to go through that and show you what I do to meet ACX's standard in Adobe Audition. So hopefully something somewhere will help you to better understand what ACX's standard is and how to achieve it. I feel like I'm all over the place already. Good morning. But first, let's get over to the poll. That way we have a good idea as far as where everybody is in understanding the ACX standard. And today's poll is, have you ever had a project fail ACX QC? And QC is their quality control. It's where you finish with the audiobook files, you submit them to the author for review, the author has okayed them, and then they go off to quality control. And what I think is that ACX just uses software. I mean, why not? Everything is AI, is ruled by AI these days. So it goes through their software, which is pretty much, I would think, Audiolab, which is also available on ACX. And the software will spot check the files. They'll check it for your noise floor. They'll check it for if you meet the RMS standard and that your peaks don't exceed the -3 dB. So that's what that means. Oh, and I also want to add that we do have some people that join these live sessions that are not at the beginning of the audiobook journey and do have a little bit of experience. So if you find yourself in a place where you're having a lot of trouble meeting ACX standards and you're seeing some of the comments in the chat about, it's fine, no big deal, it's, not a thing, don't be discouraged. It's not you. Believe me, we've all been at that place where we're finding and understanding the delicate balance in effects and compression and normalization of the files to meet ACX standards. So don't get discouraged. It's not just you, I promise you. So back to the poll. So far we have 23 votes. Looks like 4% of you said multiple times. Okay, fair. I did too. 12% of you said, 13% of you said yes once. And then 46, so the majority of you saying no, not yet, but nervous. And then 38% of you said, no, I pass consistently. That's kind of what I anticipated. Okay, so if you're concerned about your files meeting ACX's standard, when I work with mentees or anybody else that I'm helping to learn about this stuff, I will show them how to check their own files in your DAW. I use Adobe Audition, so hopefully what I'll show you today will easily translate to your DAW, your recording software of choice, if you don't use Adobe Audition. But I believe me, learn how to understand how your DAW works and how all the effects work in your particular DAW of choice. That way you can check your own files and be assured that the files are correct. And that little boost of confidence is everything. And I'll even just throw in here really quick that sometimes, I've had a few times where ACX QC said that one of my files was off, either in noise floor, in the RMS, or the peak was too high or too low or whatever it was. And because I learned to check my own files and I knew that they were correct, I still go back and double check the file because, we're human, we miss things. So I checked the file and it met all of the standards just fine. So then I deleted the file in ACX and then just re-uploaded it without changing anything. And ACX came back and said, "Yep, great, thanks for fixing that." So it's not 100% accurate 100% of the time. But if you know that your files are correct in your own DAW, then you really have nothing to worry about. Just know that most everything is fixable, right? Most everything is fixable. Fixable? Fixable. I speak words good. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I did an audition in ACX this morning, and I didn't do anything to it. I just recorded it, and then I saved it. So I'm going to show you what I do to process my files for ACX. And yes, I do submit my auditions ACX compliant because I think it's important. It shows the author or the client or the rights holder that I can meet ACX's standards. And it also shows what the final product is going to sound like. So I think it's important to make sure that your auditions are also ACX compliant. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to my Adobe Audition. I'm going to close a couple screens here so I can see what I'm doing. Where's my audition? There it is. The first thing that I wanted to point out is naming your audition files. If you can see here at the top, this file is named Angela O because that's my name first, and then the name of the book that I am auditioning for, and then underscore ACX. Because I have come across many times where authors, when they're looking for narrators to audition for their book, sometimes they submit or solicit those auditions in more places than just ACX. Sometimes they'll have author friends reach out to other narrators that, may be available and have them audition as well. So in my mind, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. If my audition is chosen as, the narrator of choice for this job, I want to make it as easy as possible for the author to find me and hire me. So I want to make sure that my name is in the file, the name of the book that we're auditioning for, obviously, and then also ACX, because that's the platform that I submitted the audition on. So they could go back to ACX, find me, hire me, everybody's happy. So make it as easy as possible for the client to find you. Okay, so the very first thing that I do before I edit, before I do anything else, I'm going to get rid of, or I won't say get rid of, but reduce my noise floor. I have a pretty noisy room, which is one of the reasons I chose this particular microphone, because it's going to be focused more on my voice more than anything else going on around it. So I have an electrical panel in my room and I have a playground 15 feet outside my studio. It gets noisy in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is find a section of the file that has no dialogue, no breath, no mouth clicks, nothing other than room tone, which is right here. There's a little bit of scuffle noise in there or whatever it is, but I'm just going to select just a little bit of this room tone. And then I'm going to go up to Effects, go to Noise Reduction, Restoration, and then Noise Reduction Process. I hope you guys can see all this. Let me switch back over really quick so make sure you can see this. Oh, it doesn't look like you can, or can you? Nope, it doesn't look like it's showing up. Let me do this. Let me see if I can capture my whole screen here. That way it shows up properly. Hold one moment, please. Let me remove that, and then we're going to stop screen sharing. Then we're going to go to screen share, entire screen. Here it is, screen one. Okay. Oh, we also want to share my system audio. Hang on. Sorry, guys, technical difficulties. Hold on. Share screen, window, Adobe Audition, also share system audio. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this is working. Let me just pull this up so I can make sure that I can see you guys. We'll move this over to my other screen. All right. Now is it showing everything? Can you guys see the noise reduction screen? Is that showing up for you? I can't see it. It's delayed on StreamYard, so I can't really see it. Anybody drop a comment for me really quick to let me know if you can see my noise reduction, the little pop-up screen here? No, you can't see it? Oh, dang it. Well, that's not good. Hang on. The last time I did this, it showed up, but let me try entire screen. There we go. Now we can see it. Okay. So let me do that over then. Let me close this out. So we want a little section of the noise floor here, just noise floor, nothing else. Again, no dialogue, no breath. Select that and then go to Effects, go to Noise Reduction Process. And then this little window is going to pop up. And then with that section still selected, we want to capture that noise print. And then what you're going to see is little, pixelated visual representation of your noise floor. This blue bar here is basically, it's asking you how much of this, like what's the threshold of how much of this noise you want to remove. So I just raised this bar up a little bit. Again, I don't want to go too heavy on the noise reduction because we're also going to be using a equalizer that cuts out some of that low end noise too. But if you wanted to further refine in Adobe Audition how much of this particular frequency of noise you want to remove, you can tell it, I want to reduce it by a percentage or by dB. You can tell it down here. I just keep it, again, minimal, a 21% or 3.1 dB. That might even be a little bit high. But because this frequency of noise runs through the entire file, and we need to remove it from the entire file for audiobooks, for the noise floor standard, I'm going to select entire file, then I'm going to apply it to the entire file. Excuse me. So as you can see, it didn't remove it completely, but that's fine because once we apply my effects rack, it'll further reduce it a little bit, and then we'll double check it. The next thing I'm going to do is come to my effects rack, and I have a preset that I have created for just about everything I do, voiceover and audiobooks. I use this one preset for everything that I do. Excuse me. And then in it, I have an NS1 mono. And I know there are better other noise reducer plugins out there. I realize that, but I'm kind of old dog, new tricks, right? NS1 works for me. It is a little bit harsh. I use it minimally. I think my setting is, let's take a look at this really quick. I have it at 2.8. And I really think that you really shouldn't be using this any higher than 10, right? It just ends up muffling you and making you sound worse than you sound. So I use that sparingly. The other effect that I use is a mouth declick from Isotope. We talk about this suite of plugins all the time, the Isotope RX11. This is RX10. I haven't updated it yet because it still works fine for me. But the mouth declick focuses on the clicks that our mouths make when we speak. This one is very good at differentiating from a mechanical click to a organic sounding click. I know it's kind of grody, but we have sticky mouths. Our mouths make noise. So this will help to reduce some of those clicks. And then we have a deplosive in here because even though I have my microphone off axis, meaning it's not directly in front of my mouth, and I also have a pop filter on my microphone, I still get animated and move around a little bit, and this will help to catch those plosives before they go into the microphone. It'll help reduce them a little bit. I'm sorry, not before. The deplosive removes them once they're recorded. These, the pop filter and the off-axis microphone, helps to reduce it before it gets recorded. Getting all excited. The DS is also from Isotope RX10, and this will help to reduce some of the sibilance. I am a naturally very sibilant speaker. I think it's my seed cracker front teeth here. It produces a little bit of a whistle. In my S's, it'll help to reduce that a little bit for me. And then I have my parametric equalizer. Now, this particular equalizer was made especially for me, my room, my space, my equipment, my voice. It was made for me by Tim Tippett, who I initially was going to have on today to talk to, but due to technical difficulties on his end, we had to reschedule. I'm hoping for next week, maybe the week after. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed. But he made this especially for me, so I use this on everything. And then, like I mentioned before, I totally forgot. The way that this is set up, he's got a high pass on here that cuts to about 50 right there. So anything below 50 down here as the noise floor will be cut with that equalizer. And then the last effect I have on here is a single band compressor. Now, Adobe Audition has a multi-band compressor, and it has a few different ways that you can do this, but I just keep it simple. There is a voiceover preset for the single band compressor, but I have changed it up a little bit over the years, and I'm still, of course, we're always still tweaking our effects. So this is my settings for my single band compressor. And the purpose of the compressor is to basically bring, just to put it in layman's terms, if you're just at the very beginning, to bring some of these peaks that are up here in the waveform and some of these lows, like some of these peaks, some of these lows, it makes them a little bit more uniform in volume. So that will help you with the RMS standard, which is basically the average volume of your file, right? So compression is definitely a must. So once I've reduced the noise on the file, I'm going to apply my effects rack. So we'll go ahead and let that do its thing. It's going to take a couple of minutes there. Just checking the comments really quick. Yeah, for the noise floor, for the noise reducer, NS1 is just what I've always used because I've been doing this for a while. And it was one of the first noise reducer plugins that I liked. Nowadays, you have Clarity. There's also, I think, a couple of different options within the Isotope RX10 or RX11 suite of effects. But I just haven't really needed to go out and look for another one, but maybe I should. Thanks for the donuts, Rebecca. Oh, by the way, we have a new donut member. Susie, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. All right, so now that the effects have been applied, you can see the difference. We just flip back and forth here. So that's the original, lots of peaks, lots of lows, and then after we've added all of our effects, you can see the difference. The volume is a little bit more uniform. And I can still see where I've clicked. There's a click there for a mistake. Now, I just want to tell you, there were an awful lot more mistakes in this file. I had to go through and edit some of them out, but I did want to leave one in just to show you how I remove my retakes because I use the clicker method to mark mistakes with my dog training clicker here. Some people use the punch and roll method. I use the clicker method. Again, old dog, new tricks. That's how I started, and I just kind of go with it. But I wanted to show you how I remove my edits, or my retakes, rather. Okay, so now that I've applied my effects rack, my noise reducer, now what I'm going to do before I start editing, I'm going to go again and find a nice sample of cleaner room tone to use as we go through, and you'll see what I do with that. But what I'm going to do down here at the bottom right, I'm looking at the duration as I select, because I want to grab about 0.6, that looks good, 0.676 seconds of silence, not silence, of room tone. And I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to use that clean room tone to adjust my pauses, to adjust the head and the tail to meet ACX's standards. Excuse me. So while we do that, I'm going to put my ears on so I can hear what I'm doing.
Mistakes to avoid.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is adjust the head of this file, because for ACX, the head of your file, the narration needs to start between a half a second and a second. So there needs to be somewhere between a half a second and a second of room tone. Now, if you recall, I copied 0.676 seconds of silence, so that is already kind of right between the half a second and a second. So pasting that in just put me right in that standard. So the narration needs to start between here and here. So I'm pretty much right in the middle of that. Now, because this was the header of this audition, I'm going to give this a little bit of a pause. So I'm going to select all of this silent, or all of this pause here, and just adjust it. Maybe three of those. We'll put in 3 of those. We'll paste in 3 of those. Okay. And then we're just going to listen through a little bit here. We're not going to go through the entire file, but I'm just going to show you what I do.
Each of us has made a heart mistake at least once.
All right. I see this retake here, so I'm just going to see where I restarted this.
Each of us has made a...
Okay, so each of us.
But if you dream of true partnership...
I think that was...
Each of us...
Oh, that was the beginning. Okay, so I didn't like the way that I started this audition, so I just completely restarted. So what I'm going to do is take my playhead, and I'm going to just select all of this, because I just completely restarted, and then we're going to delete it. Right? Now what I do is I'm just going to visually look through here. Now, obviously, if you see any more clicks where you marked a mistake, go through and do what I just did, remove the retake, or remove the bad and keep the retake. Oh my God, I hope I'm not confusing you. But now visually, I'm just going to go through and look and see if there's any big breaths like this one. I'm just going to listen to it and see if it sounds weird. I'm going to be looking for pauses. I'm going to be looking for shuffle noises or breaths or any weird things that stand out to me to fix. Yeah, it looks like we got a couple of places in here where I might have paused. So let's just look through these really quick.
Plan upside down. This chapter is your...
Okay, so that's the start of a new paragraph, perhaps. So I'm going to give that a little bit more of a pause and get rid of that weird breath.
Too early. Chemistry, a spark, sex. But the emotional bond...
I should probably edit that out.
Myself for him.
I'm going to get rid of that breath and give it a little pause.
You give up on your own values, passions, even your grandma's knickers, because he prefers something else.
I hope you guys can hear it.
Attracts it naturally.
Okay, there's another big breath between paragraphs. I remember this part.
Mistake number 4.
Oh, that's right. We're listing out mistakes.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and just make sure that these are...
The result? He received everything before he had to make any effort. Mistake number 2.
Okay, where's mistake number 1?
Mistake number 1.
There it is. All right, so I'm going to give myself an extra little pause here, and I'm going to break out the different sections. I hope you guys can actually hear this. Let's see.
The result?
Okay, mistake number 2. There it is. All right, so I'm going to give that a nice little equal pause, equal to the first mistake, since we're listing out mistakes.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, that one's got a little bit of the same. All right.
Mistake number 3.
Okay, this should be...
Mistake number 4.
Mistake number 4. I hope you guys can hear. Can you guys hear what I'm playing here?
Love does not hurt. If he cannot,
You can hear it? Good. Thank you for letting me know. Okay.
mistake number 5.
All right. So let's give that a nice little pause. And then I don't think there should be so much of a pause here. So I'm going to reduce this a bit.
Grandma's knickers. Yes, it sounds funny, but leaving them in the drawer means
All right. So let's just adjust this pause here.
realizing these few mistakes will allow you to eliminate them completely.
There's another breath. I'm just going to reduce that.
And what if he says, space appears for what is real?
Okay. Let's reduce that. That was too much of a pause.
Appears for what is real. And what if he says, I don't want a relationship? What then?
Okay. So I asked a question here. So I'm going to give that a little bit more of a pause to give the listener a moment to go, oh, yeah. So what then? Right? And remember, this is an audition, so I want to show the author what this is going to sound like.
It is a gift.
I'm going to leave that pause. Let's see.
Truth. And do not try to interpret that truth differently. Like, he's just afraid. He was probably hurt before. He hasn't got to know me well enough yet, etc.
I'm going to get rid of that breath.
And here, the list of your excuses is really long.
Ooh, a little bit of a mouth noise there. I'm just going to airbrush that out. And then reduce this pause because I think I shifted the script.
The truth is that men are not as complete is really long.
Let's increase that pause there for dramatic effect.
Cross his boundaries. You do not wear your grandma's knickers so that you can now run after someone who doesn't want to build anything with you. They are your shield against illusion.
Okay, we're making a point there, so I'm going to make that a cleaner pause.
They are your shield against illusion.
Actually, I'm going to shorten that pause a bit. Oh, here's another mistake. I left it in for you.
Ben, focus on what is. And the man has just
There we go. And get rid of that retake.
what is. And the man has just told you that he doesn't want it.
Can you guys guess what this audition was for? Hopefully it's still available by the time we're done. All right, so now that we're at the end of the audio file here, I need to now make the tail or the end of this audio file. There has to be about between a second and 5 seconds of room tone. So taking that room tone that I have copied, because I want it to sound consistent, I'm not just going to cut out time. I'm just going to paste in what I already have about 4 times. That way it's a consistent floor. It's a consistent volume all the way through. Now I'm just going to measure that. Looks like we're at 2.726 seconds. Perfect. All right. I'm happy with it. We've edited it. Now we're going to normalize it to -3. And then after we do that, then we're going to spot check it to make sure that it passes all of the standards. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if we don't, I'll show you how to fix it. So I have normalized to -3 dB on a hotkey. But to find that, you would just go to Favorites and hit Normalize to -3. All right, now that we've normalized it to -3, I'm going to go to Amplitude Statistics. And if you don't have, if you don't see Amplitude Statistics and you have Adobe Audition, all you got to do is go up to Window and just make sure that it's checked. That little effect window is going to pop up and you just drag it to wherever you want to. I just dragged it over here next to my effects rack, so that way these two are where I need them. All right, so now that we have Amplitude Statistics, slow down, Angela, Amplitude Statistics, then I'm going to scan this file. All right, so my peak amplitude is exactly -3. It can be lower. Remember that the peak amplitude of -3 dB is not your target. It is a threshold. So if you're below that, that's fine. You just do not want to eclipse -3 dB. But the other problem I see is that my total RMS amplitude is at negative 17.51, which means it's way too loud. So we're going to have to reduce the volume a little bit. And then, actually, I'm not even going to check the noise floor right now because we're going to have to adjust this anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my little history bar down here and just undo normalize. And now we know we're too loud. So what I'm going to do is just reduce the volume of the file just a few dB. Let's go down to 4.8. And then I'm going to renormalize it. And we're going to check it again. And it's still too loud. Did I go back too much? Hang on. I think I didn't go back far enough. There we go. Now. Now let's reduce it. Okay, now we're going to normalize it again. Did I actually go back too far this time? No, I didn't. Okay, let's scan it. Getting distracted. Okay. Now, my peak amplitude is exactly -3. My total RMS is now at -20.36, so we're right in the middle between -18 and -23. So we know that tracks, right? So now let's check the noise floor. Now, just as I said before with ACX's software, it's going to spot check. Usually in places where there is a lot of room tone, right? So I'm going to check here and watching my volume bar down here. I can't see because the stupid StreamYard thing is in the way. Let's move that. So it looks like we are under -60, so good. So let's spot check a couple other places. Let's check here. And we're under. Okay, good. Let's check a couple other places. Good. Work there. Okay. Let's see. Let's check here. Good. Let's check in a place where I didn't paste in that room tone. Let's try here. Good. Okay. And then here. Good. Cool. All right. So this file passes ACX's standard. Now, the last thing I'm going to do after I've verified all of that, you have to save it as an MP3. And the sample type is going to be 44,100 hertz. And your bit depth is 16 bits. And then we're going to hit OK. Now, I find that sometimes when I save it as an MP3, it shifts the dynamics of the file a little bit. So I'm going to check it again just to make sure that it didn't change too much. And sometimes it'll get a little bit louder, like the peak amplitude will eclipse that -3. It didn't this time, but if it does, all you need to do is make sure that the entire file is highlighted and just drop it down. Like reduce the whole file volume by like 0.3 dB and then scan it again. And then it should at that point be under the -3. Even if it needs more than 0.3 dB, if it needs like, if you need to take down 0.9, whatever it is, to make sure that your peak amplitude is under -3 and your RMS is still within range. So that's what I do with my files. So let's go to the questions and see if there are any. I'm sure that there are. Let me move you guys back over here so I can see your questions and things. Cool. All right, now I can take these off. So if you guys have questions, please ask. Sean was here. I was still in bed when Sean sent this message. Sean says, "Good morning, Angela and all from Nashville. If changing ACX username to a pseudonym, do current credits follow it since it's the same account? Doing some extra spicy work soon and need separation." Okay, this is a good question. Now, you are asked when you submit an audiobook what name you want to use. And that name, at that point, if you're using a pseudonym, will apply to that book that you submitted. Now, if you're considering doing some kind of work that you do not want anyone to ever find out about to make the connection that it's you, You might want to consider just making a whole new Amazon account, maybe, and then creating an ACX profile through that separate Amazon account, because ACX um, a, is an arm of Amazon. So you create your ACX account through Amazon. I guess it just depends on how secret you want the pseudonym to be, if that makes sense. But you can change it from book to book. And if you do change it for one book, it won't change all the other ones you did. It's just for that particular book that you submitted. Right? So if your account is your name, Sean, and then you decided to do one spicy book, and then you change it to your pseudonym for that book, all the other ones still remain Sean, if that makes sense. Caesar's here. Hey, Caesar. Passing ACX QC is super easy, barely an inconvenience. This is kind of an inside joke, although I'm sure this isn't an issue for Caesar because he's been doing this for a while. But what is that, pitch meeting? The pitch meeting from YouTube? So funny. But yes, passing ACX doesn't mean it sounds good. Yes, I was totally in this boat when I first started. I was meeting all the standards, but to get to those standards, I was completely destroying my audio quality. So that is why I wanted to show you what I did by going about it the right way from the beginning, making sure that your raw recording volume is set properly, that your microphone is properly placed, you're using effects sparingly, and then, adjusting as you go. And know that not every file is going to be, is going to go as smoothly as the one that I just did. Sometimes you're going to have shouting lines in the dialogue, and some of the peaks are going to be much higher than mine were. That was a pretty even-keeled narration, so there wasn't a whole lot of big spikes or volume changes, right? Each file is going to be a little bit different and may require a little bit more massaging to get to the ACX standard. But I wanted to impress upon you that it's not as difficult as we make it out to be. And I think we make it out to be that way because we see so many other people on YouTube giving advice, and we try to apply what they're doing directly to what we're doing, and that might be something that you don't even need, right? So this is why, again, I always say to get with peer groups, to get feedback on, get help on where you need it if it comes to ACX standards, or hire an audio engineer to help you with this delicate balance of effects and things. But I can tell you right off the bat, I mean, I think I was my own biggest enemy in trying to meet ACX standards. I was doing too much and just making it worse. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's why I wanted to show you what I do. So hopefully, if you're doing a lot, if you're going through the file several times or something like that, I just wanted to show you don't need to do that, right? Because obviously when you're doing auditions, you want to have, let's just say you have like an hour in a day to submit auditions. You don't want to have to spend, that hour getting 1 or 2 auditions done. I want you to be able to have time to get 10 auditions done in that hour, right? Let's see. Caesar says you still need good dynamics control. You just can't record hot. Take that raw file, normalize it to -3 dB, and call it a day. Lightly compress before pushing loudness. And keep in mind that everybody's space, equipment, proximity, I mean, everybody's got slightly different recording space or situation. So what one person may need, another person may not. Or what one person's setting may not, apply to somebody else's. So that said, hello everyone. After mixing with headphones for 3 years, I struck gold during the Lunar New Year special period and got 70% off on a pair of Edifier MR5 studio monitors. Very happy with them. I have studio monitors in my studio as well. I have the JBLs. And I think having different outputs, meaning you have your studio headphones and then you also have monitors, like big speakers, basically, in your studio, gives you two different ways of hearing the output or your playback, because having a couple of different output options will give you more of an idea of what your audio is going to sound like coming over computer speakers versus car speakers versus earbuds versus Bluetooth speakers, right? There's so many different ways to listen to anything. So let's just say something sounds very sibilant over your speakers, but it's not as much through your headphones, or vice versa. So having a couple of different options to listen to feedback on is helpful to hear how it sounds and what you may need to address in your audio file. Again, Susie, thank you for joining. Ken says, how much different does it make? These are the headphones, I think is what he meant. Rustic Hillbilly, good morning to you. Is it still snowy in Oregon? Caesar says, huge, huge difference. I think he was more talking about the compression than the headphones. Caesar says, I still use both headphones and monitors to make mixing decisions. Studio monitors tell me how sound interacts in a room. That's a good point, too, for studio monitors, because not everybody's going to be listening to what you deliver over, isolated in your ear headphones, right? That's a good point, Caesar. Earplugs and gun muffs are a good thing after all. Yes. Caesar says, I also find studio monitors to be more accurate in making compression decisions. Sibilance is also more natural sounding, so I don't over S. I also make better EQ decisions for box and mud cuts. Eric says, good morning, all from a beautiful sunny SoCal. 65 degrees here in the desert. What's the temperature over there, Eric? Shanna says, thank you for the pronunciation guide. I appreciate you. Shanna says, I find it hard to make the sound consistent when going back to fix a line I don't like. It doesn't sound like the rest of the paragraph. Okay, so what I do, is this for like a revision? Or when you're like inserting a new line into like an established audio file. Let's just say if you're doing a revision, if you're listening through and you don't like a line that you recorded and you want to just completely do that line again, what I would do is open up a brand new file in Adobe Audition, re-record that new line, but make sure it's not just a word. I would re-record the entire sentence. And then process that file, that retake file, the same way you did the original, and then insert it. And then, of course, as always, the normalizing to -3 is last. So if you're trying to insert a new clip into a file that's already been processed, normalized, it's not going to sound the same, because the normalization is sort of like almost like a compressor. It increases the volume, the overall volume of the file, and it also sort of compresses again. So if you're trying to insert something that's uncompressed or it doesn't have the effects rack on it, if it's not processed the same way with the file, it's going to sound a little bit different. So when I'm doing a revision, I always keep the original WAV file that's already been edited and has my effects rack on it, but it's not normalized. I keep that WAV file for revisions. That way, if there is a revision, I use that WAV file to correct the issue. So I'll just do what I said before. I'll open up a brand new file, re-record whatever needs to be re-recorded, and then add my effects rack, edit it if I have to, and then copy it, and then paste it in. And then I will normalize it to -3 and save it as a MP3, effectively replacing the original MP3, right? So in essence, I keep 2 files for every chapter, every section of the book, if that makes sense. Shanna says, I keep my mic in the same place, but it still doesn't sound like it fits in. I can tell it was a redo. That's what I found was usually the issue before I now make the revisions the way that I just stated. Even if it's a different time of day, and I don't know why this happens, because I could be recording for an hour and then stop recording, maybe shift in my chair a little bit, and then start re-recording again 5 minutes later, and it sounds a little bit different. It's strange, but it does happen. But more often than not, the issue for me was that I was trying to insert an unprocessed revision into a file that was already processed. Effectively, it's going to sound different because it has a different set of effects on it. Like one does and one doesn't, right? That's usually what it was. As far as Tim, I'm hoping next week. He was having some electrical issues at home. So I guess it depends on how quickly they can get that fixed. I'm hoping for next week, if not the week after, but I will definitely keep you guys posted for when he's available. Yeah, we talked this weekend. Bummed. I don't even know what that is. John. Thank you, John. Good morning. Because of my unpronounceable ID, I'm going to put my name before any comments. I appreciate that, John. I appreciate that. Caesar says to Shanna, it may be less about the mic and more about how your voice changes slightly during different times of day. Best practice is to replace the whole paragraph. And that's a good point, too. And I also find that when we're trying to do a retake, depending on the time of day, like Caesar said, our voice changes, as we get tired or as we're not warmed up anymore, or if we are warmed up, it's going to sound a little bit different throughout different points of the day. But also, in addition to that, when we re-record something, we usually start over with a lot more energy. So it's going to have a different pitch and tone to it, too. So it's a good idea if you're inserting a new clip into a file as a revision or something like that, that you want to listen to what is preceding it in terms of your tone, your pitch, and then try to match that instead of coming in it with a brand new, energy burst, because it just will sound funny. So I hope that helps too. Voiceover by Lisa says to Shanna, I have the same issue sometimes. I have the same settings, mic placement, etc., but it can sound very different. Also, another thing it could be is that if it's a very short clip, like if it's 2 words, and then you add the same effects rack to it, it's going to process it slightly differently because there's less file to process, right? Which is another reason why I say record the whole sentence, if not the whole paragraph. That way, your effects can process a larger file, much like the larger file that you're trying to insert it to. So don't just re-record a word or two, re-record a substantial amount so it makes sure that your effects rack can process it close to the same as the longer file that you're inserting it to, if that makes sense. That might help as well. Let's see. Dylan also says, meeting standards is easy for me. I just push the button Caesar told me to, and boom, I'm done. Joel says hello. Hello, Joel. Joel just joined our academy. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. Rebecca brought the donuts. Thank you, Rebecca. Shanna says, I usually remove the extra noise from noise floor after I apply my effects rack. Is there a reason to do one before the other, or does it matter? I have found that the order in which you apply effects does matter. I tackle the noise floor first because I use that clean noise floor to paste in as I edit. So I want that to be as low as possible. Not silent, not completely silent, but I want it to be as low as possible so that I can use that clean room tone to adjust the rest of the file. That is why I do that. But I'm sure it does have a I'm trying to think. Something just popped into my head. So if you apply your effects rack first, edit it, then normalize it, then try to attack the noise floor, which I have done in extreme circumstances, that noise floor or that frequency of noise is going to be so much louder than it actually was to start with. So then when you try to reduce it at that point, it's going to take some of those same frequencies out of your voice, which it does, as I showed you in the beginning too, but it's much lower volume at that point. So it might have more of a adverse effect on your voice if you try to remove it last. But again, it is something that I admittedly had done before in extreme circumstances when I was still trying to learn all of this. So the process that I showed you is the most effective way for me to meet ACX's standards every time. I forgot that I was on Instagram today, but thank you. Thank you for joining. Just looking for any questions over there. Okay. Caesar says NS1 is also what I use. Better denoisers aren't necessary unless the noise floor is egregiously high. Yes, but the trick with the NS1 is to not use it super high. I mean, use it sparingly because it can be very destructive if you're using it at a very high level. Again, NS1, I don't go any higher or recommend any higher than 10, and 10 might even be a little bit too extreme. Right? If you're finding that you have extreme noise floor issues, I would figure out what is causing the noise to create that high noise floor. And usually the culprits are an HVAC system, like you're trying to record while your heater's on or your air conditioner is on. You have an overhead fan or some sort of fan in your booth. If you're right next to an electrical panel, or maybe, you just need better cables. Sometimes cables and microphones have their own noise. It could be really anything. Your computer, for me, it was my computer fan that was causing all the noise. And a bulk of what you saw in my noise floor was my computer, but I can't move it any further away than it is. So those are usually the culprits of the producers of noise to create your noise floor in the first place. So if you have noise floor issues, take some time to figure out what's causing it and address that, or move it as far away from your microphone as possible. And don't record while your heater's on or your air conditioner's on. Josh says, "Good afternoon, all. I used to use NS1, but since I got the Apollo Twin X, I haven't really needed it." Yeah, that's a good interface to have for sure. Josh says, "I have a bit of an overbite, so my sibilance is scary also." Yes, I'm a little sibilant. Tanya says, "Evening all, Tashana. I also noise reduce after applying effects, but only if there's anything left after my RX11 plugin has done its job. Might check whether I still need to do it that way around." I mean, yeah, I find it sounds more natural if I do the noise reduction first and then apply my effects rack if there's, noise floor issues. And I only do that for audiobooks. I don't do that noise reduction at the beginning. I don't do that for normal everyday voiceover. I do that only for audiobooks because there is that standard to adhere to. Most of the noise is not even audible, to the human ear. On Instagram, Z Ferguson says, "What is considered egregiously high? My noise floor is usually around -45, which I believe is the best I'm going to get in my space." I would say I wouldn't say that's egregiously high. I would say that's pretty common or close to pretty common for what I see with most of the people that I've worked with. So for you, Z, I would really take a look at what may be the culprit in causing that noise in the first place and see if you can reduce it, get it away from you, turn it off, whatever it is, as much as possible to get it down into the 50s, perhaps. And then that way it's a little bit more manageable to reduce without completely destroying your voice in the process. Chastity, I almost skipped over you. Hello, Chastity. Good morning, Chastity. Looks like Caesar agrees with me. Folks, please denoise before the rack. The rack will re-amplify any noise that exists before processing. There you go. Caesar then says, also make sure you're recording in 24-bit. Using an effects rack on a 16-bit file will raise what is that? You're just getting fancy with your Scrabble words. And will require heavy denoising after the fact and will make it prone to artifacts. Yeah, I record at the very minimum 48,000 hertz and 24-bit, and then I change it when I'm done with the file. I had something else I was going to add, but it doesn't really. It's just tangent. I just pump the brakes on the tangent. You're welcome, Z. Lisa says to Caesar, I have the RX standard. I never use the denoise. What does that do? I haven't used the denoise in the RX, but if you've got the suite of plugins from Isotope, play with them, right? Record a nursery rhyme or some sort of a sample, track to play with, and play with all the effects and see what they do. Get familiar with them. One of them could be just like the best thing since sliced bread for you. It could be the very thing that you were looking for to fix a problem that you had. Dwight is here. Hey, Dwight. Good day to all of my fellow Angelinos. Hello, Ms. Angela. Hello, Dwight. Good to see you. Chastity says, if I can clear, there we go. So far, I use Audacity and thought to give Adobe Audition a try. I notice I had to play around with it to get rid of an echo sound once applying noise reduction. Yeah, I used Audacity for like 3 months maybe, and then I switched to Adobe Audition, and it was like the whole world just opened up. Like in retrospect, I felt like I was trying to edit looking through a straw. That's how I best can explain it. And then once I used Adobe Audition, it was like I could see in full picture. I had access to everything that I needed, and it was a lot easier to get things done. It was more intuitive, right? It had more features and functions that helped me as a voice actor and an audiobook narrator. But not that Audacity isn't bad. I mean, I know a lot of people that still use it, but for me, that was my impression, and I love Adobe Audition. Sage is here. Hey, Sage. Good afternoon, Angela and everyone. Sorry I'm late, so I made sure to bring some apple fritters. And lattes. I'm hungry. Cherry fritters. Bring some cherry fritters. Those are my favorite. Caesar said to VoiceOver Lisa, there's voice denoise, quick, easy, friendly. Excuse me. And spectral denoise, powerful, surgical, dangerous if used incorrectly. Both essentially remove noise or lower the noise floor. I like croissants. Dwight, I like croissants. Yes, please. Let's see. Oh, Z's leaving. Bye, Z. Have a good meeting. Over on Instagram. Jerry says he loves voice denoise in RX. I brought Nutella. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to tell you guys. All right. So I love TikTok. Okay. You guys probably know that. And I do shop on TikTok. And have you seen the Nerdy Nuts on TikTok? It's like a canister of a peanut butter treat. It's a spreadable treat. But they could just get like crazy with them now. There's like I just bought the strawberry Dubai chocolate bar from Nerdy. Oh my God. That stuff is so good. Oh my God. It's not like you could actually put it on toast or anything. You're better just grabbing a spoon and just having a little bite here and there. But oh my God, that stuff is so good. Oh my God. Caesar says to Chastity, likely the noise reduction was aggressive and hollowed out the performance. And I've done that to myself many, many times, not knowing. You don't know what you don't know until you try it. But Caesar's right. That's exactly what I did to myself. So again, that's why I wanted to show you guys what I do in hopes that it helps you a little bit. Lisa says to Caesar, I have used the spectral denoise for stuff I need to remove in tight quarters between words and found it helpful. Let's see. Review Exchange Group says, I wasn't eligible for this one, but I did consider it because it sounded like a good story. Glad you got an audition for it. For the Grandma's Knickers, this audition, yeah, they were looking for a female. Hopefully it's still available by the time this live is done, because I will definitely submit this audition. Does it make a difference if we edit before we process? I prefer to do it the way that I showed you, so that way there's less to do after. Because once you add your effects and you process your file, when I go through and edit it, I'm also looking for anything that my effects perhaps didn't fix or reduce or help, right? So let's just say with my mouth declick, for example, if I didn't apply that first, then I'm in the editing process, I'm probably going to go through and take out a lot of those mouth clicks manually that my effects could have done for me. So if I apply my effects first, it'll help to reduce my noise floor, reduce my S's, my plosives, my mouth clicks, and make me sound better, right? So I can go through it all at once and try to catch anything that my effects rack did not catch or wasn't, it wasn't. Anyway, tangent. I'm going to stop that right now. But that's essentially why I do it that way. That way I only have to go through the file once to remove retakes, to adjust anything my effects rack didn't adjust for me well enough, and adjust the head and the tail and call it done, right? The point of this is effective time management, right? This is why I do it this way. That way you can get more auditions done in a short period of time and have them pass ACX QA and or QC and move on to the next audition faster. Jerry says to Caesar, you said voice denoise before I run the rack. I've been running mouth declick, DS, compression, voice denoise, loudness, normalize, limiter, EQ is needed. Move denoise at front. The order in your effects rack matters also. So you want to add any kind of, the way I look at it is remove the bad and then enhance what's left as far as the order. So if any kind of denoiser, deplosive, DS, mouth click, all of those removal type effects are going to be first. And then below those, you're going to have your your EQ, your compressor, right? So the order in which you apply effects does matter as well. Janelle says, hi, Angela. Hi, everyone. Super late, but super happy I made it today. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for joining. You forgot the donuts, Janelle. Just saying. Caesar says to Jerry, mouth declick, voice denoise, compression, DS, EQ, loudness, normalization, limiter. Sounds like you're using Audacity. Dwight says, in my honest opinion, it is best to edit first, so when the rack is applied, is only working against material that is in the performance. I can see how that would make sense, but to me, I want to be able to catch anything in just one swoop. I only want to go through the file one time to make any adjustments, to remove retakes all at one time. I don't want to have to go through it a second time to make sure that my noise reducer worked properly. Like, you know what I mean? Like some setting wasn't reset somewhere that I didn't catch, and now I got to go through it a second time because, you know what I mean? It just kind of makes sure that everything is done the right way the first time and only time through the file as I edit. Caesar says to Jerry, also EQ twice, before compression to remove mud and box after compression to gently shape the sound. That sounds overkill to me, Caesar. But, I mean, you got a better ear for this stuff. I only EQ once. Pitch meeting, that's what it is, right? It's pitch meeting on YouTube. So funny. Oh my God. Kat is here, another donut. Hey, Kat. Hi, all. At the end, so no tangent. Does anyone else have issues with ads interrupting the live? I've never had an issue with it before. Is it still doing it? I did. So StreamYard had just updated. It keeps integrating stuff over with YouTube, which is cool, which is awesome. But there's a feature in there that I didn't see last week that says enable ads, right? It's like a default, it's on. This time I made sure it was off. So if you're still seeing ads in the middle of the live, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm going to have to get a hold of somebody at StreamYard because that's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. So I apologize for that, Kat. Yep, technology. Renata's here. Hey, Renata. Hello. I'm getting ready to upgrade my Mac. I'm considering buying Logic Pro instead of the yearly subscription with Adobe, which is better. Adobe, my opinion. Wasn't Logic Pro the same as, I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing the two. Adobe Audition. Kat says I was having, or to Lisa, to Kat was saying I was having ads pop up in these live chats in previous weeks, not yet this week though. Okay. So are there still ads, but not as much as last week? You guys tell me so I can fix it. Jerry says, I think it's also going to depend if you have YouTube Premium or not, because YouTube Premium suppresses the ads because you're paying a membership, right? Jerry to Caesar says, I have FabFilter Pro Q4, so I guess I wouldn't be able to use the spectral and dynamic features. I'll tinker. Caesar to Jerry says, FabFilter Pro Q4 has dynamic EQ features, which are amazing. Great for doing little deep DS pre-EQ. Bit of a learning curve, though. That sounds like it. It sounds like it. Dwight says, hey, gang, don't forget to like and follow. Sing praises for the mountaintop. It helps Angela a lot. Yes, it does. It does. And if you're watching this in Team Replay, please leave a comment. And that helps the new AI algorithm on YouTube to, tell other people, hey, this is cool. Watch this. It just helps my algorithm. YouTube keeps changing their algorithm stuff. It's all AI now. So the more interactions with my videos, the better. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Eric Grimes is here. Hey, Eric. Hi, Angela and all. I echo hiring an expert. Paying Caesar to set up my effects rack has been invaluable. Joy says, hey, Dwight, I like to sing because you're here. How the heck are you? Let's see. Sharif says, does affect quality if we edit first, then process? I mean, I don't think so, but again, I just want to go through it once. Because if I edit first, then apply my effects rack, then I'm going to want to, at the very least, spot check it again to make sure that my effects did what they were supposed to do. So if I apply it first, and then I can also get that clean room tone to paste in later, right? So I do my effects rack first, then edit, and then go through it once. Done. Caesar says, to me, the 416 has a very narrow pickup pattern and sound can easily color when even slightly off axis. The 8060 is a similar shotgun that's more forgiving off axis, but it's less punchy. I love that word, punchy. John says, hello, everyone, from chilly upstate South Carolina. Hello, John. Review Exchange Group says, since I use Descript to edit my audio, I do a version of punch and roll. I keep recording and just make the correction at that time and then go back in later and edit it. Descript uses a Word file, a transcript, so it's easy to remove and replace my many bad mistakes. Ken says, I started first running effects, but now I'm also doing all my edits first, then running my effects and processing after. I still have the original audio file if I have to go back and make a change, but you don't want to have to do that, right? You don't want to have to keep 50 different files for each file, for each, 50 different versions of one file, right? And then you don't have to go back to a different file to make it, you know what I mean? I don't know, but I guess do whatever process works for you. Tanya says, I use Audacity too. What are the best noise reduction settings to avoid echo sound? Mostly hear it on breaths after running rack. And this is what I mean about using some effects. I mean, depending on your situation, that could just very well be echo in the room that you're maybe accustomed to hearing. But I do find that sometimes especially with noise reducers, if you're using it too heavily, it will reduce some of those warm frequencies in your voice also, because noise is usually a lower frequency. So it's going to remove those same frequencies from your voice, making you sound hollow or tinny or just, weird. So it could be very well that your noise reducer is just whatever you're using is just set too high. Caesar says, rule of thumb with NS1, I would say 9 is as high as you want to go. I would agree with that. If you need more than 9, you need physical noise control, or you need to figure out where the noise is coming from and reduce it, remove it, move it as far away as possible from the mic that you can. Let's see. Oh gosh, we've been on over an hour. Let's see if we can find some questions. Dylan says, just finished my 20th book. Good for you, Dylan. I need to get re-energized by an awesome community. Does the demo production discount apply for Launchpad members, or do I need to join VOJ at a higher tier? To be honest, I don't know anything about a demo production discount for members. There very well could be. That would be a great question for Anthony, I think. That would be a great question for Anthony. Joy says, is tackling the noise floor issue the first thing to tackle in any DAW if you want to meet ACX's standards? I know Audacity and I think Adobe already have ACX analysis plugins, but not sure about others. First, as I always say, I don't like to rely on ACX plugins because just like ACX's Audio Lab, it's not 100% accurate 100% of the time. You want to be confident and self-sufficient in knowing that you've checked your own files to make sure that they are ACX compliant in just the ways that I showed you earlier. But I like to tackle most or the majority of the noise floor issue before I apply my effects rack, right? So I want to reduce my noise floor, then apply my effects rack, and then edit, and then be done. John says, I use the ACX check-in plugin. Are there any? Yes, it's not accurate, 100% accurate 100% of the time. It's not. So I don't want you guys to become reliant on third-party checkers. I want you guys to be, again, confident in knowing that your files will pass, right? You've personally checked all of these things and you know how to adjust them so you can pass each and every time without needing a plug-in crutch, right? I want you guys to know that you're good. Let's see. I think this was Sharif. Sharif says third commercial for me so far on the live. Interesting. Do you have YouTube Premium or no? I'm curious about that. Let's see. Looks like Caesar agrees with me. It can be often inaccurate, especially with noise floor measurements. Much prefer using Second Opinion, which is a standalone program similar to ACX Audio Lab. Yeah, I don't like using checkers anyway. Let's see. Ken says no ads for me this time. Well, that's good. See, I'm seeing mixes. Some of you guys like Ken, do you have YouTube Premium? Because they shouldn't show you ads for YouTube Premium. But for those of you that don't pay for the YouTube subscription, you shouldn't be seeing ads because I turned them off. So I'm going to have to go back and double check. Dwight says, I am watching on YouTube on both my phone and PC. Ads only happened at the beginning of the PC version and the phone gets it over and over. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, I'm so sorry, you guys. I thought I had turned it off. Maybe it's a YouTube setting thing that I'm gonna have to go in and look at. But thank you for letting me know because I know it's irritating. Let's see. Caesar says, yes, edit first before process effects quality. If you edit after process, you risk having the effects rack overreact to some peaks if they're not leveled beforehand. But how often does that happen? I don't know. Yeah, but I think you're right, Caesar. I mean, ultimately, do the process that works best for you. I'm just showing you what I do and what works for me to be consistent, file after file after file. But having said that, whatever process you do choose, make sure you're doing that same process on every single file of that audiobook, because sound quality does matter. So don't experiment on chapter 1 and then experiment something different on chapter 2, right? Do record like a sample phony file and then play with that and see which way, make a version 1 and a version 2 and see which way process you like better. But just make sure that when you have an audiobook that you're working on, that you're applying the same process on every single file so it sounds consistent. Let's see. My YouTube is the free version also, and I've had no ads. Interesting. So I wonder if it also depends on... I also wonder if it depends on like your shopping preferences too. Because Google watches everything that we do and everything that we look at, everything that we look up even on Google, and then it spits it out as an ad on anywhere they can get you. So it's interesting. Interesting. Jay says, hi, Angela. Hi, Jay. Are you still using the Digital Storm PC for your narrations, or have you? Nope, I still have the same Digital Storm PC that I bought 6 years ago. Same one. I've upgraded a few components, like I've had to replace the power box, I guess what you call it. I've had to also replace the graphics card, and I think something else. But I've had to replace a couple of things in it, but it's the same one. I'm surprised you guys even remember that. Let's see. I just got an ad, no premiums. Okay. Let's see. Caesar said, oh, I clicked the wrong one. Caesar says, some folks have much louder dialogue than narration, especially when doing character voices. That makes sense. Those need to be edited before processing. Okay, but it's not like, for me, that would just be like a standalone incident, because we don't, unless you do a lot of books like that, I guess, and that would be your process. Again, everybody's process might be a little bit different depending on what you're doing. Like Caesar said, if there's loud dialogue, you're shouting, something like that, the process might need to be tweaked a little bit. But for me, I do mainly nonfiction, so not a whole lot of dialogue in those. It's usually just instructional, Caesar says, should we make this a launchpad session like DAW 101 for folks who want to do it themselves in lieu of hiring a sound engineer? Yeah, I think so. I think that would be great. Maybe we can plan something for next month, for March, Caesar. I'll touch base with you on Discord and see what we want to do. Professor Tracy says, I only had ads when I started the live. Interesting. So it sounds like a very different experience for all of you. No premium on an iPad for commercials. Interesting. Okay. Well, I apologize for that. There's not supposed to be any, so I'm going to have to check again with StreamYard settings and YouTube settings and make sure that stuff's turned off. So sorry about that, you guys. It's a learning process. See, everything is a learning process. We learn as we go, right? All right, you guys, that's going to be it for me today. Again, I will keep you posted for when Tim Tippett, who was the sound engineer or the audio engineer and a voice actor that I hired to create my effects rack for me, as well as a couple of shortcuts on my keyboard. I'm losing my voice already. How is that possible? But I'll keep you posted on when he's able to come in and talk with everybody. I think there was something particular that he wanted to talk about as far as studio builds, but we'll figure it out as we go. Anyway, for those of you in Launchpad, I'll see you guys. It's Wheel of Emotions this week. I'll see you guys on Thursday. If you want to be part of our Launchpad or our VoiceOver Academy, there is a link in the description that you can come and join us. Please do. The more the merrier, the more perspectives and insight and experience levels. It just makes everybody better. So please join us. If you want to join my channel and get to see everything that I put out video-wise, short-wise first before everybody else, then please join down below. I appreciate that. Questions, comments, anything like that, please leave it in the comments. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.